We're back, guys! And, well, we actually haven't really been gone that long, have we? Well, in any case, we're back, and I am so excited to share with you all Week 3 of SMAUGUST 2022. Yep, we are caught up and back on track. What's SMAUGUST? Well, that's a good question. And one that I think I answered pretty well in this video, Week 1 of this challenge. If you haven't watched that yet, I advise that you do. Then you'll probably want to watch Week 2's video, if you're the chronological type, and even if you're not, you're just popping in for Week 3, that's fine too. I hope you enjoy the 6 new dessert-inspired dragons I've made for this week. You might want to go back and watch the other 2 videos at the end of this one, because today we'll be looking at the long-anticipated release of the final stage of Knagen's evolutionary line. It's all very exciting, and I'm not wasting any more time. Let's dive in. At the end of the last video, I said I wanted to go back to a style of illustration that I was a little more comfortable with. A style that, in my opinion, looks nicer than some of the other pieces I've done so far this month. Mooncakes are one of the desserts on here that I've never actually had, but I really want to try. The most appealing thing about them to me, visually, is that glisten that they have. When baked just right, the intricate patterns on the dough darken to a beautiful golden brown, and the whole surface develops a glossy texture that just looks irresistible. I wanted to bring in as much of that appetizing texture into this dragon as I could. Making something look glistening, wet, or glossy is actually pretty simple. Really all you need is a strong, crisp white, which is pretty easy to use in digital art. Just a few highlights on areas where the light is actually reflecting off of the surface gives it that squeaky clean kind of feel. The specific texture of said surface will determine where and how much white you'll need to use for your highlights. On something like a mooncake, the light catches mostly on the edges of the cake's surface. If you're unsure of where the highlights should go, find a good reference image. Be warned though, looking at high-resolution photos of mooncakes will make you very hungry. Baked Alaska is another dessert that I've not only never tried, but also wasn't fully aware of until I made this list, and Claire suggested that I include it. I knew it had something to do with ice cream, but the word baked seemed to contradict that. Turns out, it is in fact baked ice cream. It's probably one of the most American things you could imagine. It's cake, covered in ice cream, covered in meringue, and then you set it on fire. This last part is why Claire thought it would make a good dragon, and she was totally right. I actually haven't included any fire in the designs of any of these dragons so far, which is a shame because I really like painting fire. I have a way of stylizing it into geometric shapes. Fire is, in some ways, formless. Something that's on fire has a shape, but the flames themselves are constantly moving, changing, glowing, and are even a little transparent. For me, it's fun to capture that entropy with sharp curves and pointed edges that imply a lot of movement without necessarily looking very realistic. One form of serving baked Alaska involves covering it with alcohol before igniting the surface. The burning liquor will take on a bright blue color, and this was a detail that I thought looked awesome in my dragon design. This design was a little tough for me because while I have tried tiramisu, I don't really like it. I don't like the flavor of coffee. It's too bitter, and even when it's sandwiched between thick cream and sugar, the taste just makes me pucker. I didn't want the quality of this dragon to suffer because of my personal bias, so I still tried to make this dragon as cute as possible. Tiramisu, to me, invokes an image of something small but robust, something cute and hearty, sophisticated but not snooty. Something like a friendly dog that belongs to a rich old lady. That was the vibe I wanted to capture with this dragon. It might just be me, but it's very interesting to develop a personality for a character based off of only an inanimate object. I guess it goes to show you that humans have a way of associating emotions, memories, and even personalities with something as simple as a piece of cake. Creme Brulee is probably one of my favorite desserts on this list. My grandma used to make them for me on special occasions, and they're just so unique. Something about that crispy, sugary crust covering a thick and creamy custard. I haven't had anything else like it. My Creme Brulee dragon was going to be somewhat similar in tone to the Tiramisu dragon, but with the snooty factor dialed up significantly. It's such a fancy dessert, I wanted the dragon to look and feel as high class as I did every time I got to have some. When it came to painting this dragon, my first goal was to capture that iconic char that's created on the surface of a creme brulee. Sometimes this crust is formed in the oven, but in the fanciest restaurants, it's made at the very end as part of the presentation, wherein the server will burn the surface of the custard ever so delicately with a special torch. Like with how I illustrated the other baked goods on this list, layering brushstrokes was key in creating the texture of a creme brulee crust. A saturated yellow layered with a desaturated brown, then a more colorful orange on top of that, then a dark red, and finally a deep brown to indicate where the torch had burned the hottest. I also had another opportunity to paint some more fire, and created a little mini narrative for the character. This dragon was somewhat vain, and as part of her regular grooming routine, she burns the surface of her skin ever so slightly to create a golden brown tan. In stark contrast to the fire of the last day's prompt, Day 17's dragon would be a frozen dessert. I realized as I was working on this one that I should have included more desserts like sorbet to balance out all the reds, yellows, and browns of the numerous pastries that make up this list. Anyway, sorbet, or sherbet, or sherbet, however you want to pronounce it, is another favorite dessert of mine. I really love fruity treats, and my favorite thing about a good sorbet is how many different flavors it can come in. I love the citrus ones like lemon or lime, but I also really love a good raspberry sorbet too. I couldn't decide on just one flavor, so I decided to make this dragon resemble a tropical bird, with flashy colors all similar to those found in fruity sorbets. Another aspect of this design that I wanted to include was some ice. We had fire in the creme brulee and the baked Alaska, why not some ice for the frozen dessert? Ice is tricky to paint. If you took a regular ice cube out of your freezer and painted it, it would probably just be transparent or mostly white. Yet, we like to associate a saturated blue with icy palettes. To find good reference images of ice like this, I recommend looking at pictures of icebergs and glaciers. These massive structures do boast that stunning blue tone, and the reference images will help you isolate which parts of your piece needs to be lighter, more saturated, or different shades of blue. The final dragon on this list was another little cutie. The adjectives I associate most with a strawberry shortcake are delicate and sweet. Okay, sweet is a bit of a cop-out. All of these desserts are sweet. In fact, it can be tempting, when designing characters that all fit a certain theme, to unintentionally reuse certain elements of previous designs. That kind of happened here, and I didn't realize it until I was well into the piece, but yeah, this one's head is pretty similar to that of the sorbet dragon. Anyway, I wanted this dragon to be small and cute, and even a little bit dainty. I thought it might be fun to capture the look of a layered shortcake as a coiled serpentine body. Though I have been trying to be less literal with these designs, I did end up using whipped cream as an anatomical feature on a lot of this dragon's body. And yes, I never specified this prompt as explicitly strawberry shortcake, but come on, that's the best one. Last week's dragons left me feeling a little unfulfilled, but I'm so much more happy with this batch. Get it? It's a dessert pun. Anyway, let me know if you agree with me and enjoy this style of rendering more than the sketchy line work based work that I've been doing so far this month. I think they both have pros and cons, and if I spent more time working on my sketching, I think I could make the line work based designs look a little better. Now though, it's time for us to meet the final stage of Knagen's evolutionary line. Some of you have already guessed the direction in which I took the final evolution's design. Following in theme with Knagen's obsidian knife head and Kahatchet's obsidian axe head, Makwahurt will sport a menacing Makwahuit. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I know a few of you are already familiar with this type of weapon, and some of you may know of it but don't actually know its name. A Makwahuit is a type of short-range club used by ancient Mesoamerican cultures. They're made of wood and lined with razor-sharp shards of obsidian. Needless to say, taking a hit from one of these bad boys would not feel great. I don't have a lot of inherently evil Pokemon in the Mazda region yet, but Machwahurt is definitely a bad guy. While designing this character, I had images of characters from franchises like Bionicles and Power Rangers in my head, and tried to emulate that Saturday morning cartoon level of villain. Everything about it is sharp, jagged, bulky, or all of the above. I know that a key element to designing Pokemon is to make them seem like they could be your friend, and this one could be, as long as you don't mind having a slightly evil friend. Machwahurt, the Arsenal Pokemon. Infamous as one of the cruelest Pokemon in the Mazda region, Machwahurt is dangerous, aggressive, and territorial. Its body is incredibly resistant to physical damage, and armed with jagged stones that it collects from its fallen foes. It prefers to target weaker opponents, Kanagin in particular. After it defeats them, it takes their stones and uses them to adorn its own body. With a swing of its club-like head, it can fell trees, shatter rock, and slay foes of all sizes and power. Week 3 is over, and the full Kanagin line is complete. Like I said in Week 1, these Pokemon designs ended up being way darker than my other illustrations done during the drawing challenge. No pun intended. Even still, I think they came out great. We still have one more free day on this list, which means one more new Pokemon design for the Mazda region. This one is going to be a big reveal, as it will be the final member of the Mascot Legendary Trio. I'm very excited to share it with you, so stay tuned for next week's video. Finally, we'll take a look at some of my favorite pieces from the SMAUGUST channel of the Subjectively Discord. Guys, you're crushing it. I know more than most how hard it is to keep up with these monthly drawing challenges. Harder still to consistently produce work as impressive as this. You guys are an inspiration to me and the other artists participating in SMAUGUST this year. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. A very special thanks to our Patreon supporters and to our newest super subjectivist, Elijah Fincher. We couldn't do what we do without you guys, and it means so much more than just money to us. Peace and love, everyone. We'll see you all in the next video.